The crystal spire stood tall against the purple sky of Velrian Prime. Its walls were made of glass and metal that shined like diamonds in the sunlight. Inside the grand building, hundreds of people from different planets walked around and talked. Some had blue skin, some had scales, and some looked almost like humans but with strange eyes or extra fingers. They were all here for the same reason. The Galactic Coalition was having an important meeting and everyone wanted peace. Jake Morrison stood near one of the tall windows. He wore the dark green uniform of the Terran Defense Force with his rifle strapped across his chest. His brown eyes moved constantly, watching every person who walked by. He had done this job for 8 years now, and old habits never died. Even at a peaceful meeting like this, Jake could not relax. Something in his gut always told him to stay ready. He thought about his little sister back on Earth. Emma was only 20 years old and studying to be a teacher. Before Jake left for this assignment, she had hugged him tight and made him promise to stay safe. He told her this would be easy. Just stand around at a fancy party and make sure nobody caused trouble. No fighting, no danger. Just boring guard duty for 2 weeks, then home. But Jake's instincts were rarely wrong. Around him, the alien delegates kept their distance. They would glance at him, then quickly look away. Jake noticed how they walked on the other side of the hall when they passed human soldiers. He understood why. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy. They were known as warriors who never quit and never backed down. Other species found humans scary because they could take so much pain and keep fighting. In the last war against the Thoran Empire, human soldiers had done things that shocked everyone. They won battles they should have lost. They saved people they barely knew. They fought like wild animals when their friends were in danger. The other species respected humans, but they also feared them. Jake heard footsteps behind him. Light and quick. He turned his head slightly and saw a young girl walking toward him. She had pale blue skin and silver hair that fell to her shoulders. Her eyes were large and purple, and she wore a white dress with gold patterns. Jake recognized her immediately. Princess Liara of the Velriani Empire.
He had seen her photo in the security briefing. The princess stopped a few feet away from him.
She looked nervous but curious. Most adults avoided talking to human soldiers, but this girl seemed different. "Hello?" she said softly. Her voice had a musical quality to it. "Are you from Earth?" Jake nodded. "Yes, Your Highness. Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison, Terran Defense Force." "I have never met a human before," Liara said. She stepped a bit closer. "Is it true that your planet has only one kind of intelligent species? No one else to share it with?" "That's right," Jake said. He tried to sound friendly. The girl seemed nice enough. "Just humans on Earth. Well, and our dogs and cats, but they don't talk back much." Liara smiled at that. "What is a dog?" Jake found himself smiling too. "It's an animal. 4 legs, furry, very loyal. Humans keep them as friends. They love us no matter what." "That sounds wonderful," the princess said. "On my world, we have something similar. They are called Lithrans. They are small and have wings, and they sing beautiful songs." She paused, looking up at Jake's tall frame. "You are very tall. Are all humans this big?" "Some are bigger, some are smaller," Jake said. "I'm about average for a human male." The princess's eyes went wide. "Average? You must be very strong then." Before Jake could answer, his earpiece crackled to life. Lieutenant Kyle Harris's voice came through. "Morrison, you there?" Jake touched his ear. "I'm here, sir." "We're getting some weird readings on the edge of the system," Kyle said. His voice sounded tense. "A few ships just dropped out of hyperspace. Could be nothing, but I don't like it. Increasing security level to yellow. Keep your eyes open." "Copy that," Jake said. He looked at Princess Liara. "I'm sorry, Your Highness, but I need to focus on my job now." "Of course," she said, but she looked disappointed. "Perhaps we can talk again later." "Maybe," Jake said, though his mind was already elsewhere. The princess walked away and Jake's hand moved to his rifle. Yellow alert meant possible danger. It meant something was wrong. He looked out the window and saw the city below. Lights were starting to come on as evening approached. Everything looked peaceful and calm, but Jake's stomach was tight with worry. An hour passed. The sun set completely and the crystal spire's lights came on. Music started playing in the main hall. The delegates were beginning the evening celebration. There would be food, dancing, and speeches about friendship between worlds. Jake moved to his assigned position near the entrance to the main hall. He could see everything from here. Kyle's voice came through his earpiece again. All teams stay sharp. Those ships are still out there. They're not responding to hails and they're moving closer to the planet. Jake's jaw tightened. This was bad. Ships that didn't answer questions were usually up to no good. The music grew louder. People laughed and talked. A Velriani official was giving a speech about unity and cooperation. Everyone was happy and relaxed. Nobody except the human soldiers seemed worried about the ships. Then the lights flickered. Jake's hand went to his rifle instantly. The lights came back on, but now alarms were starting to sound in the distance. He heard Kyle shouting orders through the comm system. All units, we have multiple hostiles entering the atmosphere. This is not a drill!
Get the delegates to safety now.
The speech stopped. People looked around in confusion. Then the first explosion hit. The blast came from somewhere below them. The whole building shook. Windows shattered and people started screaming. Jake saw flames rising from the lower levels. His training took over immediately. He started moving toward the main hall, shouting orders. Everyone stay calm. Move to the emergency exits. Security teams, form up on me. But more explosions followed. The ceiling cracked and pieces of it started falling. Jake saw aliens running in every direction, panicking. Then he saw armed figures in black armor coming through the broken windows. They wore helmets that covered their faces completely. In their hands, they carried weapons that glowed red. The Kraven Raiders. Jake recognized them from the war. They were pirates and mercenaries who sold their services to anyone who paid. They had no honor and no mercy. And now they were here attacking a peaceful meeting. The raiders opened fire. Energy bolts flew through the hall, hitting people and walls. Jake dove behind a stone pillar and returned fire. His rifle kicked against his shoulder as he shot 3 quick bursts. 2 raiders fell, but more were coming through the windows. Jake heard crying. He turned his head and saw Princess Liara crouched behind an overturned table. She was alone and terrified, tears running down her blue cheeks. Her guards were either dead or scattered. The raiders were moving toward her, and Jake knew why. A princess would be worth a fortune in ransom. He made his decision in a split second. Jake ran toward Liara, firing his weapon as he moved. He slid to a stop next to her, putting his body between her and the attackers. "Stay down," he yelled. The ceiling above them groaned. Jake looked up and saw cracks spreading across it. A support beam was breaking. He grabbed Liara and pulled her close, covering her body with his own. Then the ceiling fell. Everything hurt. Jake's ears were ringing so loud he could barely hear anything else. Dust and smoke filled the air around him, making it hard to breathe. Heavy pieces of concrete and metal lay on top of him, pressing down on his back and legs. For a moment, he could not remember what happened. Then his training kicked in and his mind cleared. The ceiling had collapsed. He was buried under rubble, and underneath him, protected by his body, was Princess Liara. "Your Highness," Jake said, coughing out dust. "Can you hear me? Are you hurt?" He felt movement beneath him. The princess made a small sound, then spoke in a shaky voice. I think I am okay, but I cannot move. Something is on top of us. That something is me and about half a building," Jake said. He tried to shift his weight, testing what he could move. His legs were pinned, but his arms were free. Pain shot through his left shoulder, but it was not broken. Just bruised badly. "I'm going to try to get us out." "Stay still and cover your mouth." "There's a lot of dust." Jake pushed against the concrete slab above him. His muscles strained and sweat ran down his face. The slab moved slightly. He pushed harder, gritting his teeth. The weight was enormous, but humans were strong, stronger than most species in the galaxy. That was one of the things that made other aliens nervous around them. The slab shifted more. Jake pushed with everything he had, and finally it slid to the side with a grinding sound. Fresh air rushed in. Though it still smelled like smoke and burning metal, Jake pulled himself forward, dragging Princess Liara with him. They crawled out from under the pile of debris and collapsed on the floor, both gasping for breath. Jake checked himself quickly. His armor had cracks in it and his shoulder hurt like crazy, but nothing was broken. His rifle was damaged. The scope smashed and the barrel bent slightly. It would still fire, but accuracy would be terrible. He had 3 spare magazines left. Not much for a war zone. He looked at Liara. Her white dress was torn and covered in gray dust, but she seemed unharmed. Her purple eyes were wide with fear and shock. She stared at the destruction around them. They were in what used to be a beautiful hallway. Now it looked like a bomb had hit it. Walls were collapsed and fires burned in several places. Bodies lay scattered around, some aliens Jake did not recognize. He forced himself not to look too closely. Getting emotional would not help anyone right now. Jake touched his earpiece. Harris Morrison here. Do you copy? Static crackled in his ear. Then Kyle's voice came through, broken and faint. Morrison! Thank God. We thought... Status report. I'm alive. I have Princess Liara with me. We're trapped in the East Wing, Level 3. Building is severely damaged. What's the situation? It's bad, Kyle said. Jake could hear explosions and gunfire in the background. The Kraven hit us hard. They're all over the building. We're trying to evacuate delegates to the underground bunkers, but they're blocking the main routes. Can you make it to evacuation point Beta? Jake looked around. The hallway they were in had collapsed at both ends. Negative. Our path is blocked. We'll have to find another way out. Copy that. Be careful, Jake. These raiders are hunting for high-value targets. The princess is exactly what they want. Don't let them take her. Not going to happen, Jake said firmly. The comm signal broke up into static, then died completely. Jake tapped his earpiece a few times, but nothing worked. The jammers the Kraven were using must have gotten stronger. He was on his own now. Liara stood up slowly, using the wall for support. Her legs shook, but she stayed on her feet. What do we do now? She asked. Her voice was small and frightened. Jake stood up and checked his rifle again. We find a way out of here and get you somewhere safe. Stay close to me and do exactly what I say when I say it. Understand? The princess nodded. Jake led the way through the ruined hallway. They had to climb over piles of broken furniture and concrete. Every few steps, Jake would stop and listen. His hearing was coming back now that the ringing had faded. He could hear distant sounds of fighting, shouting voices, energy weapons firing. Somewhere far below them, something exploded. They reached a stairwell. The door was half open, hanging from broken hinges. Jake pushed it aside carefully and looked down. The stairs seemed intact, going down into darkness. The power was out in this section and emergency lights flickered weakly. We're going down, Jake said. Watch your step. If you slip and fall here, you could get seriously hurt. They started descending the stairs. Jake went first, rifle ready, scanning every shadow. Liara followed close behind, one hand on his shoulder for balance. The stairs seemed to go on forever. Jake counted the floors as they passed. 3, 4, 5. The sounds of battle grew louder as they got lower. At the 7th floor, Jake stopped suddenly. He held up his hand and Liara froze. He had heard something. Footsteps. Heavy boots on metal stairs. Coming up toward them. Multiple people moving in formation. Jake quickly pulled Liara through the 7th floor door and into another hallway. This one was in better shape than the one they had left. The light still worked and the walls were not collapsed. But that also meant they could be seen easily. He found a side room and pulled the princess inside. It was a storage closet, full of cleaning supplies and equipment. Jake closed the door quietly and put his finger to his lips, signaling silence. They waited in the dark. Jake could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. The footsteps grew louder, voices speaking in the harsh, clicking language of the Kraven. They were right outside the door now. One of the raiders tried the door handle. Jake raised his rifle, aiming at chest height. If that door opened, he would have to kill quickly and quietly. The element of surprise was all he had. The handle turned slightly. Jake's finger moved to the trigger. His breathing slowed. He had done this before, many times, but never with a teenage girl hiding behind him, counting on him to protect her. Then someone called out to the raider at the door. The handle stopped turning. The raider answered back in their language and moved away. The footsteps faded down the hall. Jake let out a slow breath. That was close. Too close. Are they gone? Liara whispered. For now, Jake said quietly. But there will be more. We need to keep moving. They waited another 5 minutes, then carefully opened the door. The hallway was empty. Jake led them in the opposite direction from where the raiders had gone. They moved quickly but quietly, staying close to the walls. Jake's mind was working through their options. The main evacuation routes were blocked or controlled by the enemy. The underground bunkers were probably the same. They needed to get outside the building, away from the concentrated fighting. Then maybe they could hide until the coalition forces retook the area. But the Kraven were not stupid. They would have the exits covered. They turned a corner and Jake stopped again. At the end of this hallway was a large window that had not been broken yet. Through it, Jake could see the city below. Fires burned in several locations. Ships flew overhead, some shooting at each other. This was not just an attack on the Crystal Spire. This was a full-scale assault on the capital city. Liara made a soft, sad sound. "My home," she said. "They are destroying my home." Jake wanted to say something comforting, but he had no comfort to give. The situation was as bad as it could be. Instead, he focused on their survival. "We need to find food and water, medical supplies if possible. Then we hole up somewhere safe until morning. Moving at night in a war zone is too dangerous." "You know a lot about war," Liara said. It was not a question. Too much, Jake admitted. He thought about the battles he had fought, the friends he had lost, the nightmares that still woke him up some nights. "But that knowledge is going to keep us alive tonight. Trust me, Princess, I will get you through this." Liara looked at him with those large purple eyes. "I do trust you," she said simply. "You already saved my life once tonight." They moved on, searching for supplies. Jake found a medical station on the 8th floor. Most of it had been looted already, but he grabbed bandages, pain medication, and antibacterial spray. It was not much, but it was better than nothing. In a small kitchen area, they found bottles of water and some food bars. The food did not look very good, but it would keep them going. Jake filled a bag with supplies while Liara kept watch at the door. As he worked, Jake noticed the princess watching him. She seemed puzzled by something. Finally, she asked, "Why did you come back for me? When the attack started, you could have run away to safety with the other soldiers. Why did you protect me?" Jake paused. He thought about his sister Emma, about how terrified he would be if she was trapped in a situation like this, about how he would want someone to protect her if he could not be there. "Because it was the right thing to do," he said. "Where I come from, we don't leave people behind, especially not kids who can't protect themselves." "I am not a child," Liara said, a little defensively. "I am 16 years old." "You're a kid to me," Jake said with a slight smile. "I'm 28. And you're somebody's daughter. Your mother is probably scared out of her mind right now, wondering if you are alive. I'm going to make sure you get back to her. That's a promise." Tears formed in Liara's eyes, but she blinked them away and nodded. Jake shouldered the bag of supplies and checked his rifle one more time. Outside the window, the sky grew darker as night fell completely. The city burned below them, painting the clouds orange and red. It was going to be a long night. Dawn came slowly. Jake had not slept all night. He sat with his back against the wall, rifle across his lap, watching the door. Every sound made him tense, ready to fight, but no one had found their hiding spot. They had gotten lucky and found an old maintenance room on the 9th floor. It had only one entrance, which Jake could easily defend, and it had thick walls that muffled sounds from outside. Princess Liara had fallen asleep around midnight, curled up on some old furniture covers Jake had found. She had tried to stay awake to help keep watch, but exhaustion won in the end. That was good. She needed rest. The day ahead would be dangerous. As gray morning light came through a small, dirty window, Jake heard new sounds. Engines. Lots of them. The Kraven were organizing something. He moved to the window carefully and looked out. What he saw made his blood run cold. Dozens of raider vehicles were moving through the streets below. They were setting up checkpoints, blocking every road. Drones flew overhead, scanning buildings with sensors. The Kraven were not just attacking anymore. They were hunting for someone specific. Jake had a terrible feeling he knew who. He went back to where Liara slept and gently shook her shoulder. "Princess, wake up. We need to move." Liara's eyes opened slowly. For a moment, she looked confused, like she thought the nightmare was over. Then reality came back and fear returned to her face. "What is happening?" "The raiders are conducting a systematic search. They're looking for survivors, probably high-value targets. We need to leave this building before they find us." Jake handed her a bottle of water and a food bar. "Eat quickly. We move in 5 minutes." While Liara ate, Jake checked his gear. His rifle was still functioning, barely. He had 2 full magazines left and 1 half empty. About 60 rounds total. Not enough for a prolonged fight. His armor was cracked in several places and his shoulder still hurt from yesterday. Though the pain medicine he had taken helped, he needed a new plan. They could not just hide and wait for rescue anymore. The Kraven were too organized. They would eventually search every room in every building. Jake and Liara needed to reach the outer edge of the city, away from the main fighting. From there, they could try to signal coalition forces. The problem was getting there alive. "Ready?" Jake asked. Liara stood up, brushing dust from her ruined dress. She looked tired and scared, but she nodded. "I am ready." They left the maintenance room and entered the hallway. Jake moved quietly, weapon up, checking every corner. The building was eerily silent now. Yesterday's battle sounds had faded. Most of the fighting had moved elsewhere. But that also meant raiders could be anywhere. Searching room by room, they made it down 2 floors without incident. Then, as they approached a junction in the hallway, Jake heard voices. He held up his fist, the military signal to stop. Liara froze behind him. The voices were speaking in the common trade language now, not Craven. Jake risked a quick look around the corner. 3 people were huddled in a destroyed conference room. 2 were aliens Jake did not recognize, with gray skin and 4 arms. The third was a human woman wearing the uniform of a coalition medic. She was treating an injured arm on one of the aliens. Jake made a decision. "Stay here," he whispered to Liara. "If shooting starts, run back the way we came." He stepped around the corner, rifle lowered but ready. "Coalition forces. Don't shoot." The human medic spun around, her hand going to a pistol at her belt. When she saw Jake's uniform, she relaxed slightly. "Thank God, another friendly." She gestured at Jake's name tape. "Morrison. I'm Corporal Amy Chen, Medical Corps. Are you alone?" "I have a civilian with me," Jake said. He motioned and Liara came around the corner. "Princess Liara of the Velriani Empire." Amy's eyes widened. "The princess? They've been looking for her. Half the planet thinks she's dead. She's not, and I'm going to keep it that way. What's your situation?" "Bad. I was separated from my unit during the attack. Found these 2 yesterday." She nodded at the gray-skinned aliens. "They're delegates from the Therian Collective. One's injured, but they can both walk. I was trying to figure out how to reach the evacuation zones." "The evacuation zones are compromised," Jake said. "The Kraven control most of the city center. We need to head for the outskirts. Find somewhere to hole up and signal for extraction." "I know a place," one of the Therian delegates said. His voice was rough and deep. "My embassy has a safe house 3 kilometers from here. It has communications equipment and supplies. If we can reach it, we can call for help." Jake considered this. 3 kilometers through a war zone, with 5 people, 1 injured, and limited ammunition. The odds were not good, but they were better than staying here and waiting to be captured. "Let's do it," Jake said, "but we move fast and quiet. If we run into trouble, follow my lead and do exactly what I say." They moved out together. Jake took point with Liara right behind him. Amy brought up the rear, her pistol drawn. The 2 Therian delegates stayed in the middle. The first kilometer was relatively easy. They stayed inside buildings when possible, moving from floor to floor, avoiding the main roads. Jake's military training was invaluable. He knew how to read terrain, where to look for ambush points, how to move without being seen. The others followed his lead without question, but their luck could not hold forever. They were crossing a damaged parking structure when Jake heard the whine of drone engines. He looked up and saw 3 small flying machines coming around a building corner. Craven surveillance drones equipped with cameras and sensors. "Run!" Jake shouted. They sprinted for the far end of the parking structure. The drones followed, their cameras locking onto the group. Jake knew what would happen next. In less than 2 minutes, those drones would report their position, and raiders would swarm this location. They burst out of the parking structure and into a street. Jake looked around frantically. To the left, an alley. To the right, a plaza with no cover. Ahead, a large building with its doors blown open. "The building!" Jake yelled. They ran inside just as he heard the sound of vehicles approaching. The Kraven were coming fast. Inside the building, Jake found stairs going down. "Basement, move!" They descended into darkness, Amy using a small flashlight to guide them. Behind them, they could hear boots hitting the floor above. Shouts in the Kraven language. The raiders were inside. The basement was a maze of corridors and storage rooms. Jake led them deeper, trying to put distance between them and their pursuers. But the raiders were spreading out, searching systematically. Jake could hear them getting closer. Then they hit a dead end. A solid concrete wall blocked their path. Jake cursed under his breath. They would have to go back and find another route. But voices were coming from that direction now, too. They were trapped. Amy checked her pistol. "I've got 10 rounds left." "How many do you have?" "About 50, Jake said. "Not enough." How many of them are there? Liara asked, her voice shaking. Jake listened to the sounds echoing through the basement. At least 20, maybe more. Then we cannot fight them, one of the Therian delegates said. His voice was full of fear. We don't have a choice, Jake said grimly. He looked around and spotted a narrow corridor leading to what looked like a maintenance shaft. Wait, there. We might be able to climb up through that shaft and get out through an upper floor. They ran for the shaft. But as they got close, raiders appeared at the corridor intersection behind them. Energy bolts flashed through the air, hitting the walls and floor. The group scattered, diving for cover behind pipes and equipment. Jake returned fire, his rifle barking. 2 raiders fell, but more kept coming. Amy shot carefully, making every round count. The Therians had no weapons and could only hide. Jake's rifle clicked empty. He dropped the spent magazine and slammed in his last one. 25 rounds left. He had to make them count. We're not going to make it, Amy shouted over the sound of weapons fire. There are too many. Jake knew she was right. They were outnumbered and outgunned. In minutes, the raiders would overwhelm them. And when they did, they would take Liara. They would probably kill the rest of them, unless Jake did something crazy. He looked at the others. At Amy, young and brave, trying her best. At the Therians, terrified but holding together. At Princess Liara, depending on him to save her. He made his decision. Amy, take them and go. Through that maintenance shaft. Don't wait for me. What? No. I'm not leaving you here. That's an order, Corporal. Jake snapped. Get the princess out of here. That's the mission. Nothing else matters. Jake, they'll kill you, Liara said, tears in her eyes. Maybe, Jake admitted, but I'll buy you enough time to escape. Now go. Amy grabbed Liara's arm and pulled her toward the shaft. The Therians followed, but Liara fought against Amy's grip, looking back at Jake. I'll see you soon, Princess, Jake lied. I promise. Liara shook her head. Then she did something that surprised everyone. She broke free from Amy's grip, ran to a dead raider and picked up his energy rifle. It was almost as big as she was, but she held it tightly. No, Liara said firmly. She stood next to Jake, the weapon shaking in her hands. If humans never leave their people behind, then neither will I. We fight together. Jake stared at her in shock. Then, despite everything, he smiled. You're braver than you know, Princess. Okay then, together. Amy and the Therians looked at each other. Then Amy raised her pistol. Screw it. Nobody's leaving anybody behind. We all fight. We all get out. Or none of us do. The raiders were closing in. Jake could see their shadows moving in the darkness. He took a deep breath and readied his rifle. Here they come, he said. Make every shot count. The basement erupted into chaos. Energy bolts flew in every direction, lighting up the darkness with flashes of red and blue. Jake fired controlled bursts, dropping raiders one by one. Next to him, Princess Liara squeezed the trigger on her captured rifle. The shots went wild, hitting walls and ceiling, but the raiders had to take cover anyway. It did not matter that she could not aim well. She was trying, and that meant something. Amy's pistol cracked again and again. Each shot was precise, hitting exactly where she aimed. The Therians grabbed pieces of broken equipment to use as shields, protecting themselves and calling out warnings when they saw raiders moving. Jake's rifle clicked empty. His last magazine was gone. Without thinking, he transitioned to his sidearm, a heavy pistol that had been his backup weapon. He had 2 magazines for it, 20 rounds. That was all that stood between them and death. We need to move, Jake shouted. Can't hold this position much longer. But the raiders had surrounded them. There was nowhere to go. Jake counted at least 15 enemies still active, and he could hear more coming down the stairs. They were being overwhelmed by numbers. A raider broke from cover and rushed forward. Jake shot him twice, a center mass. The raider fell, but another came from a different angle. Amy shot that one. Then 2 more appeared. Jake felt something hot graze his leg. He had been hit, but adrenaline kept him moving. He could feel pain later. Right now he had to keep fighting. Jake, behind you, Liara screamed. Jake spun and saw a massive Craven warrior in black armor charging at him with a combat blade. Jake's pistol came up, but the warrior was too fast. He knocked the gun from Jake's hand with his blade and followed with a kick that sent Jake crashing into the wall. The Craven raised his blade to finish Jake, but Liara stepped forward and fired her rifle, point blank into the warrior's side. The shot went through his armor and dropped him instantly. The princess stood there shaking, barely believing what she had just done. Thanks, Jake gasped, retrieving his pistol. Good shot. Before Liara could respond, the unmistakable sound of a grenade hitting the floor echoed through the basement. Jake saw it rolling toward them, a small sphere flashing red. He had 3 seconds. Jake grabbed Liara and threw both of them behind a thick concrete pillar. Amy and the Therians dove in the opposite direction. The grenade exploded with a deafening boom. Shrapnel and fire filled the air. Jake felt pieces of metal bite into his armor and exposed skin. His ears rang again, just like yesterday. When the smoke cleared, Jake looked around. Amy was getting up, bleeding from a cut on her forehead but alive. The Therians were alive too, though one was bleeding badly from his leg. But they were all still trapped, and now Jake could hear someone shouting commands in Kraven. The voice was deep and carried authority. A figure stepped into view through the smoke. He was taller than the other raiders and wore armor decorated with marks of rank. His helmet was off, showing a face with sharp features and cold, intelligent eyes. He carried a large energy rifle in one hand and a blade in the other. Commander Vexthor, Amy whispered. I recognize him from the intelligence briefings. He's their leader. Vexthor surveyed the scene with satisfaction. His remaining raiders held their positions, weapons aimed but not firing. He wanted to talk first. Humans, Vexthor said in accented but clear common language. You fight well, better than I expected, but you must see that this is over. You are surrounded, out of ammunition, wounded. Surrender the Velriani princess and I will allow the rest of you to live. You have my word. Jake slowly stood up, using the pillar for support. Blood ran down his leg from the grazing shot. His armor was dented and cracked. He probably looked like he had already lost. But inside, Jake's mind was racing, looking for any advantage, any opportunity. Your word means nothing, Jake said. The Kraven have no honor. Vexthor smiled coldly. Perhaps. But I am practical. The princess is worth a fortune to me alive. The rest of you are worthless. Why die for nothing? Because that's not how humans work, Jake said. He pulled Liara closer, shielding her with his body. We don't abandon people. We don't trade lives. And we sure as hell don't surrender to scum like you. The commander's smile faded. Then you will all die. Starting with you. Vexthor raised his rifle, aiming directly at Jake's head. Jake tensed, ready to try to dodge, knowing it was futile. Amy raised her empty pistol uselessly. The Therians closed their eyes. Liara gripped Jake's arm tightly, refusing to let go. Then from somewhere above them came a new sound. A roar that Jake recognized instantly. The sound of atmospheric fighters diving fast and hard. The sound of human cavalry arriving. Explosions rocked the building above. The ceiling shook and dust rained down. Vexthor looked up, his expression changing from confidence to alarm. He barked orders in his language, and his raiders started retreating. Jake knew what was happening. Coalition forces had finally broken through and were retaking the city. The raiders knew they were about to be trapped and destroyed if they did not escape now. But Vexthor was not giving up. He turned back to Jake, rage in his eyes. If I cannot have the princess as a prize, then no one will. He raised his blade and charged. Jake had no time to think. He pushed Liara behind him and met the charging commander head-on. He had no weapons, just his hands and his training. Vexthor swung his blade. Jake caught the Kraven's wrist, stopping the blade inches from his throat. They grappled, testing each other's strength. Vexthor was strong, enhanced by genetic modifications and cybernetic implants. But Jake was human. And humans had something most species did not. They could push their bodies beyond what should be possible. Ignore pain and exhaustion, keep fighting when they should be dead. Jake headbutted Vexthor, breaking the alien's nose. The commander stumbled back, and Jake followed up with a brutal strike to his throat. Vexthor gasped, dropping his blade. Jake grabbed it and drove it into the commander's side through a gap in his armor. Vexthor fell, clutching the wound. Jake stood over him, breathing hard. Around them, the remaining raiders were fleeing, abandoning their dying leader. The sound of human voices shouting commands echoed through the building. Rescue was here. Jake dropped to his knees, exhaustion finally overwhelming him. He had nothing left. Every part of his body hurt. He could feel blood soaking through his uniform in multiple places. His vision started to blur. He heard Liara calling his name, her hands on his shoulders. Amy was there too, trying to stop the bleeding. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Flashlight beams cut through the smoke and darkness. Jake saw human soldiers in coalition armor, weapons ready, securing the area. Friendlies! Amy shouted. "We have friendlies and wounded." Lieutenant Kyle Harris appeared, his face covered in soot and blood. When he saw Jake, relief flooded his features. "Morrison!" "You stubborn son of a gun, you're alive." "Barely," Jake managed to say. "Kyle." "The princess. Get her out safe. We've got her, buddy." "You did good. You did real good. Now just hold on. Medics are coming." Jake felt hands lifting him onto a stretcher. Liara's face appeared above him, tears streaming down her blue cheeks. She was saying something, but Jake could not hear the words anymore. The world was fading to gray, then to black. The last thing he remembered was Liara's hand holding his, refusing to let go. Jake woke up slowly. The first thing he noticed was that nothing hurt. Well, almost nothing. There was a dull ache throughout his body, but it was manageable. The sharp, immediate pain was gone. That meant strong pain medication and probably several days of healing. He opened his eyes and saw white ceiling tiles, clean walls, soft lighting. A hospital room, not a battlefield. He was alive. Jake tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. His body protested with sharp pains in a dozen places. He groaned and lay back down. "Do not move too quickly. The doctor said you need rest." Jake turned his head and saw Princess Liara sitting in a chair next to his bed. She looked different. Clean clothes, her silver hair washed and brushed. No dirt or blood on her skin. But her eyes were red and puffy from crying, and she looked exhausted. "Princess," Jake said, his voice rough. "You're okay." "I am okay because of you," Liara said. Fresh tears formed in her eyes. "The doctor said you should not be alive. You lost so much blood. You had internal injuries, broken ribs, infection starting. But you were too stubborn to die," Lieutenant Harris said. Jake managed a weak smile. "Kyle knows me well." "How long have I been out?" 4 days. "You had surgery twice. I have been here every day waiting for you to wake up." Liara wiped her eyes. "Everyone told me to rest, to go be with my mother, but I could not leave. Not until I knew you would be okay. Your mother. She must have been worried about you." "She was terrified," Liara admitted. "She thought I was dead. They all did. When Lieutenant Harris brought me to her, she cried for hours. She held me and would not let go." The princess smiled through her tears. "I told her I was safe because of you. I told her everything you did. How you protected me, fought for me, almost died for me." Jake felt embarrassed by the praise. "I was just doing my job." "No," Liara said firmly. "You did much more than your job. You cared about a stranger from another world. You treated me like family. You showed me what humans truly are." She reached out and took Jake's hand gently. "My mother wants to meet you. She wants to thank you herself." "When you are well enough, I'd like that," Jake said. Then a thought occurred to him. "The others, Amy? The Therian delegates? All alive." Corporal Chen had minor injuries. "The Therians were treated and returned to their embassy. Everyone survived because you led us, protected us, never gave up." Liara squeezed his hand. "You are a hero, Jake Morrison." A real hero. Jake did not feel like a hero. He felt like a soldier who got lucky. But looking at Liara's grateful face, seeing her alive and safe, he realized something. Maybe heroism was not about feeling special. Maybe it was just about doing what needed to be done, even when you were scared. Even when the odds were terrible. Even when it would be easier to run away. "Get some rest, Princess," Jake said. "You look like you haven't slept in days." Liara nodded but did not leave. She stayed in the chair, still holding Jake's hand, and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep, finally able to rest now that she knew he was going to be okay. Jake watched her for a moment, then closed his own eyes. For the first time since the attack began, he felt at peace. They had made it. Against all odds, they had survived, and soon there would be a reunion that would make everything worth it. 3 more days passed before the doctor said Jake was strong enough to leave his bed. He still had bandages covering half his body, and walking was painful, but he could move around with help. Lieutenant Kyle Harris visited him that morning, bringing Jake's dress uniform cleaned and repaired. "The Empress requested your presence this afternoon," Kyle said. "Official ceremony. She's giving you some kind of medal. Big deal, apparently. The whole diplomatic corps will be there." Jake looked at the uniform and felt nervous. "I'm not good at formal events."
"Can't I just send a message saying thanks?"
Kyle laughed. "Not a chance. Besides, the princess has been asking about you every day. She wants to see you again, and from what I hear, the Empress won't take no for an answer." "What about the situation in the city? Are we secure?" Coalition forces pushed the Kraven completely out of the system 2 days ago. We lost a lot of good people, but we won. The summit is being rescheduled for next month. And thanks to you saving the princess, the Velriani Empire is now humanity's strongest ally. Kyle smiled. You did more for human-alien relations than 1,000 diplomats could have done. After Kyle left, Jake struggled into his uniform with the help of a medical assistant. His body protested every movement, but he pushed through the pain. Humans were good at that. Pain was just information. It told you that you were hurt, but it did not have to stop you. When he was finally dressed, Jake looked at himself in a mirror. The uniform hid most of his injuries, but his face showed the toll of the battle. He had bruises that were turning yellow and green as they healed. A cut on his cheek that would probably scar. He looked older than his 28 years. A hover vehicle came to take him to the Velriani Imperial Palace. As they flew through the city, Jake saw the damage from the attack. Buildings were destroyed or burned. Work crews were everywhere, starting the long process of rebuilding. But he also saw something else. Humans and Velriani working together, sharing food and supplies, helping each other clear rubble. The attack had brought the two species closer. The Imperial Palace was enormous, made of white stone and blue crystal that caught the sunlight. Guards in ceremonial armor stood at every entrance. When Jake's vehicle landed, he was met by palace officials who bowed deeply to him. That felt strange. Jake was just a soldier, not someone important. They led him through halls decorated with beautiful artwork and tapestries. Everything was elegant and carefully crafted. Finally, they reached a set of massive doors made of carved wood and gold. 2 guards opened them, and Jake was ushered into the throne room. The room was huge, with a high ceiling and tall windows letting in streams of light. Hundreds of people were there, all dressed in formal clothing. Diplomats from dozens of worlds. Coalition military officers. Velriani nobles. All of them turned to look as Jake entered. At the far end of the room on a raised platform sat Empress Kalira on a throne made of silver and blue crystal. She was tall and regal, with the same pale blue skin and silver hair as her daughter. Her purple eyes were intelligent and kind, but Jake could see the strength in them too. This was a woman who ruled an empire and did it well. Next to the throne, standing rather than sitting, was Princess Liara. She wore a beautiful white and gold dress, much finer than the one destroyed in the attack. When she saw Jake, her face lit up with a huge smile. She looked like she wanted to run to him but had to maintain proper behavior in the formal setting. Jake walked forward slowly, trying not to limp. The pain medication was wearing off and every step hurt. But he would not show weakness here. Not in front of all these people. The crowd parted for him, and he heard whispers in many languages as he passed. When he reached the platform, Jake stopped and gave his best military salute. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the large room. Empress Kalira stood up from her throne. That shocked everyone in the room. Empresses did not stand for anyone except other royalty. But she did not just stand. She walked down the steps from her platform and approached Jake directly. "Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison," the Empress said. Her voice was strong but carried emotion barely held in check. "My daughter has told me everything you did. How you protected her when others ran. How you fought for her when you should have fallen. How you risked your life again and again to keep her safe." "I was just doing my duty, Your Majesty," Jake said. "No," the Empress said firmly. "Duty would have been escorting her to safety and then continuing with your mission. What you did was far beyond duty. You treated my daughter as if she were your own family. You showed her kindness, courage, and sacrifice." Tears formed in the Empress's eyes. "You gave me back the most precious thing in my life." "How can I ever thank you?" Jake did not know what to say. He was not good with words, especially in situations like this. "Your Majesty, seeing her safe and with you is all the thanks I need." The Empress smiled through her tears. Then she did something that shocked everyone even more. She stepped forward and embraced Jake, hugging him tightly despite his injuries. The throne room erupted in gasps and surprised whispers. This simply did not happen. Empresses did not hug foreign soldiers, but Kalira did not care about protocol right now. She was not an empress in this moment. She was a mother holding the person who saved her child. "Thank you," she whispered in Jake's ear. "Thank you for bringing my baby back to me." When the Empress stepped back, her face was wet with tears, but she was smiling. She wiped her eyes and gestured to Liara. "Come, daughter. Tell him yourself." Liara practically ran down the steps, forgetting all about royal dignity. She stopped in front of Jake, looking up at him with those large purple eyes full of emotion. "I wanted to tell you something," Liara said. "When I was with you during those terrible days, I was scared. So scared, but you made me feel safe. You told me stories about your home. You shared your food even though you did not have much. You taught me to be brave." She took Jake's hands in hers. "You are the best person I have ever met. And I want the whole galaxy to know what humans are really like. Not scary or violent, kind and protective and willing to sacrifice everything for others." "Princess," Jake said gently, "you were braver than you know. You stood and fought when you could have run. You saved my life too, remember? Only because you taught me how," Liara said. Then she smiled mischievously. "And stop calling me princess all the time. We have been through too much together for such formality. My friends call me Liara." "Okay, Liara," Jake said with a slight smile. The Empress cleared her throat and stepped back to her throne. She picked up a small wooden box and returned to Jake. "Staff Sergeant Morrison, by the authority vested in me as ruler of the Velriani Empire, I present you with the Star of Valor, our highest honor for non-citizens. It has only been awarded 7 times in our history. You are the first human to receive it." She opened the box, revealing a medal shaped like a star, made of blue crystal and silver. She pinned it to Jake's uniform herself, then stepped back and bowed to him. The entire throne room followed her lead, hundreds of people bowing to a human soldier. Jake felt overwhelmed. This was too much. He was just one person who did what he thought was right. But looking at Liara's happy face, seeing her alive and safe with her mother, he realized that sometimes one person was enough. Sometimes doing the right thing, even when it was hard, even when you were scared, that was what mattered most. The formal ceremony continued for another hour. The Empress gave a speech about the friendship between humans and Velriani. Other officials spoke about cooperation and alliance. But Jake barely heard any of it. He was tired and in pain, and all he wanted was to sit down. Finally, the ceremony ended. As people began to leave, Liara came to Jake's side. "Will you come to dinner tonight?" "Just family and close friends. Nothing formal. My mother wants to hear all the stories, and I want you to tell her about your sister." "I'd like that," Jake said honestly. That evening, Jake found himself in a much smaller, more comfortable room in the palace. The Empress was there, but she wore a simple dress instead of her ceremonial robes. Liara was there, and so were Kyle Harris, Amy Chen, and a few Velriani officials who had helped with the rescue efforts. They ate good food and told stories. Jake talked about Earth, about his sister Emma, about growing up in a big city and joining the military to see the stars. Liara told her mother about the things Jake had done during their escape, making him sound much more heroic than he felt. The Empress listened to everything, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, always grateful. At one point, Jake excused himself to make a video call. He went to a quiet room and connected to his sister back on Earth. It took a few minutes for the signal to reach across the light years. But finally, Emma's face appeared on the screen. "Jake," she practically screamed. "Oh my God, I've been so worried. I saw the news about the attack and I was so scared that—" "I'm okay, Em," Jake said quickly. "Banged up a bit, but I'm fine, see? Still in one piece, Yilrai. You promised me this would be boring guard duty. You promised no danger." "Yeah, well, things don't always go according to plan," Jake admitted. "But I'm safe now, and I made some new friends." As if on cue, Liara poked her head into the room. "Jake, are you talking to your sister? Can I say hello?" Before Jake could answer, Liara bounced into view of the camera, waving enthusiastically. "Hello, you must be Emma." "I am Liara. Your brother saved my life. He is the bravest person I have ever met." Emma's expression changed from worry to surprise to amusement. "Oh, really? He's brave? This is the same brother who screamed when he saw a spider in the bathroom? That was one time." Jake protested, but he was smiling. "He fought dozens of bad guys to protect me," Liara said enthusiastically. "He carried me through a collapsing building. He defeated their leader in hand-to-hand combat. He almost died 3 times. "Liara, you're exaggerating," Jake said, embarrassed. "I am not. Tell her, Jake, tell her how brave you were." Emma was laughing now. "I think I like this girl. She's got you all figured out, big brother, trying to downplay everything like always." They talked for another 20 minutes, Liara enthusiastically telling Emma embarrassing stories about Jake's heroics, while Jake tried unsuccessfully to get her to stop. Emma ate up every word, clearly enjoying seeing her serious military brother flustered by a teenage alien princess. When the call ended, Jake and Liara walked back to the dining room together. "You didn't have to tell her all that," Jake said. "But it is all true," Liara insisted. "And your sister should know what an amazing brother she has." Back in the dining room, the party continued late into the night. Jake sat and talked with people from different worlds, sharing stories and laughter. The pain from his injuries faded into the background. He felt at peace, surrounded by friends. As the evening wound down, Empress Kalira approached Jake one more time. "I know you will have to leave soon to continue your service. But please know that you will always have a home here. The Velriani people will never forget what you did for us, and neither will I." "Thank you, Your Majesty," Jake said sincerely. "And please," the Empress said with a gentle smile, "my friends call me Kalira." 3 weeks later, Jake was cleared to return to active duty. His injuries had healed remarkably well, thanks to Velriani medical technology that was more advanced than human medicine. He was preparing to leave the planet and rejoin his unit when Liara came to say goodbye. They stood at the spaceport, watching ships take off and land. Liara looked sad, and Jake understood why. They had been through something intense together, had formed a bond that went deeper than ordinary friendship. "I am going to miss you," Liara said quietly. "Write to me often, okay? Tell me about all your adventures." "I will," Jake promised. "And you stay safe. No more getting caught in attacks on diplomatic summits." Liara laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. "I wish you did not have to go. I'm a soldier. It's what I do. But I'll visit when I can. And you're always welcome to visit Earth. I'll show you around, introduce you to Emma, let you try actual pizza. I would like that very much." They hugged, and then Jake had to go. He walked toward the transport ship that would take him to the orbital station where his unit was based. But before he boarded, he turned back one more time. Liara stood there waving, her silver hair shining in the sunlight. Next to her, Empress Kalira had appeared, putting her arm around her daughter's shoulders. They both waved as Jake's ship lifted off. As the planet fell away below him and the stars appeared above, Jake thought about everything that had happened. A few weeks ago, he had just been a soldier doing routine guard duty. Now he was a hero to an entire species, had made friends across the galaxy, and had shown the universe what humans were truly capable of. Not because humans were stronger or tougher than other species, though they were. Not because they were smarter or more advanced, because they were not. But because humans cared. They protected those who could not protect themselves. They formed bonds across species and cultures. They never gave up, never surrendered, never left their people behind. Jake smiled and settled into his seat. Somewhere out there, among all those stars, there would be more adventures, more people to help, more lives to protect, and he would be ready. Because that was what humans did. They stood up when others fell down. They fought when others ran away. They cared when others gave up, and Jake Morrison was proud to be one of them.